Do I think about Portland on a daily basis? I genuinely do not think of them.
Like right now, LAFC just grinds my gears more than any team in the league. I'm actually going to institute a new policy. If you're playing at home and you get shut out, you don't get to complain about the penalty. This episode of Lobbing Scorchers is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based seller. Not only are they a local company, but they've been supporting independent Seattle soccer media since 2011 and are run by Sounders fans. They offer the best boutique wines in the world to members of their mailing list with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest. Their model is simple. 1, they email compelling offers. 2, you request bottles that sound appealing. 3, your wine arrives at their Soto warehouse and is ready for pickup or shipping. Their Soto tasting room is also open to the public. If you're interested in joining their mailing list or learning more about them, visit fullpullwines.com. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 61 of Lobbing Scorchers. I said the last one was 61 and it was actually 60. This is episode 61 of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Lillianwall. I got producer Noah here with me. Noah, we've got an L pod tonight. How are you feeling?
I wish we wouldn't have recorded a 60. I wish that we would have just skipped straight over to 61 because, wow. That for sure was a match that was played.
It's a tragic L pod tonight, folks, as you're not going to believe this, but the Seattle Sounders lost to LAFC and got eliminated from a tournament by LAFC. Shocking development. Can't believe it. Hasn't happened before except for the 2 previous times that it's happened in the last calendar year, including one like 2 weeks ago. 1-0 loss in the U.S. Open Cup semifinals at Starfire Sports Complex. We're going to break down the game in our game review. We're going to hit our agenda check, and we're going to take your questions. Not really looking forward to it, but, you know, it has to be done, unfortunately. Then we're going to preview this Saturday's match day 30 matchup against the Portland Timbers. So, you know, no rest for the weary, right into a big rivalry match against, you know, Seattle's top rival at Providence Park for the second time this year. So lots to talk about, even though it is an unfortunate L pod. But we don't shy away from results here at Lobbing Scorchers. We tackle them no matter what happens on the field. So before we get into that, few housekeeping items at the top of the show. Number one, just a general heads up. I'm going to be going out of town this weekend, starting tomorrow, traveling back on Monday. So that might push our schedule for the post-Portland pod back just a little bit.
You'll probably get your fix on Wednesday.
Realistically, we're probably looking at a Wednesday drop. So sorry. I know usually we try and get it out Monday or Tuesday and people get antsy. But we're going to do our best. But unfortunately, I'm going to be in an airplane all day on Monday.
Yeah,
so I can't record under that circumstance. I wish I could. I don't think my fellow passengers would appreciate it. I would do it, but technologically it just doesn't seem feasible.
He can't get blacklisted from the airlines before, you know, we go and win MLS Cup and have to play away.
If you want an update on when it's coming out, just check my Twitter. I'll let you guys know. I also wanted to shout out our new friends over at Happy Foot, Sad Foot, LAFC podcast that we collaborated with on for a preview for this game that just happened. Great guys, had an awesome interview with them. We ended up cooking for almost an hour.
It was almost an hour, yeah.
It was a good segment. You know, it'll be dated now because the game happened, but you know, you can still go back and watch it, pump our numbers a little bit, and also definitely go subscribe to them and pump their numbers as well.
We have a cultural exchange going on between Happy Foot, Sad Foot, and us. And also, if you want some really good content that, you know, it doesn't really matter when, I went on their live show right after the game ended, and there was a lot that happened, let's just say. So
I think it's good. I think we've actually managed to kind of make peace to whatever extent was possible with the LAFC fan base, who there's been some tension at different junctures. You know, whose fault is that? I'm not really here to say.
It's not
but
ours,
either way,
no.
I think that we've established some rapport, and you know, they beat Seattle every time, so I think they're probably. I mean, I know they're happy about that. So anyway. Also, I wanted to let you all know, Lobbing Scorchers is a part of the Sounder at Heart podcast network. If you want to get the best independent Seattle soccer coverage, please consider supporting us by going to sounderatheart.com/LS. That's sounderatheart.com/LS. Scroll down to subscribe and support to get 30 days completely free. Every sign up through our link helps support and grow this show. And we are going to read out the supporters' names on this show. I do have to pull them up really quick. That was bad podcasting by me, Noah, but I got this right here.
We're amateurs, all right?
I got this right here. I got the list in front of me. Kenneth Wade, Joey Pasquinelli, David McCoy, Owen Mason, Dan Pavato, Samuel Fow, Ian Mitchell, Christopher Smith, Norm Bontier, Thomas Martin, Greg Hoker, Chris Maley, Andy Hill, Mike Lentini, Nate Bontier, David Rodriguez, my nephews, CJ and Miles Marinakis, Mark Ottinger, Zach Heckman, David Pope, Brian Morton, Claire Berger, Robert Sink, Tyler Nicazzo, Steve Huson, and Choska. Thank you all so much. We love and appreciate all our paid subs.
And shout out to the Bontiers, who I met at the Open Cup game.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, they were looking for you too, but...
Oh, I was up in the little media area. Yeah. I don't even call it... So it was kind of funny, actually. I'll do a little story real quick.
Yeah. I heard you got there late. A little bit.
I got there before kickoff. But,
that's true.
But so, the Starfire press box is very small, and I guess Apple TV pulled up and they were like, we have 27 cameras. We're going to need to take up this entire thing, which usually, like every other Open Cup game I've been to at Starfire, I've gotten at least a seat in the press box. Maybe not like the best VIP seat, but I've gotten a seat. But there were so many cameras in there for this one that they set up like a completely outdoor seating area for all the media that was in attendance. So I was sitting at a table with no Wi-Fi, and it was actually kind of nice because I kind of just got to sit there and watch the game and soak in the atmosphere, and I didn't have the distraction of like doom scrolling the entire game. So it was fun from that perspective, but yeah, no, I wouldn't have gotten to really hang out with anybody. But that's sick that you met the Bontiers. We love the Bontiers.
Yeah, they were great. Also, one more who just went through. I think this is our Yamar. Patrick Sexton, our
Yamar, number 28. I thought that the road to 28 was not accomplished, but apparently
we did
is.
it.
Patrick, we love you. Thank you so much,
Patrick.
man. Thank you. So now we need help on the road to 29. Can one person out there who's listening to this right now, who hasn't yet, go to sounderatheart.com/LS. Throw us some support.
Apologies for the world's longest intro, but we will get to this game. We have so much to handle.
Well, I've got more housekeeping, unfortunately, but just real quick, if you haven't yet, please sub to the YouTube. Road to 500 subs is on. We're at 477. So we're churning right on there. And that's a big milestone for me. I want to hit that 5 spot. I think we're going to get it before episode 62. So thank you to everyone who subbed on the YouTube. And, shout out to our new audience who's discovered us on there too.
And our Yamar.
We appreciate you guys. And our Yamar. Patrick, you the man. All right, yeah, you're right, Noah. Let's be done with all that and get into this game review. Honestly, I've been kind of just trying to put it off.
I think that's fair.
So Seattle Sounders 1-0 defeat to LAFC. That is 10 straight unbeaten for LAFC. There's like 6 straight wins. 8 of them have been wins. It's like 10-1 goals or something in the last like 3 or 4 games. I'm just firing off like what I kind of remember the stats being off the top of my head. Those might be a little off, but
we're not here for accuracy. We're here for vibes.
It's not good. That's what I can tell you about the splits in this series. I mean, it's not even splits right now. It's just
it's not a competition.
It's not a competition. But this, the manner in which this L took place, I mean, it was different than the last 2, but that almost made it more painful, I think, with the fact that, the last 2 times these teams have played, it's been kind of a joke of a game. LAFC is kind of just running riot the whole time and winning by 3 goals. This one was there for the taking for Seattle, and they just couldn't quite get it done. So let's talk about why that was. First, starting with our lineup reaction, which I don't think, again, like they've been running the same lineup every week, so there's not all that much to say about the lineup reactions other than Andy T got the start in goal instead of Fry, which I was fine with. Andy T's been getting some run in Leagues Cup. He did well in a couple of these other Open Cup games, including the one in penalties that they won against the Quakes. So no issues with Andy T starting, and I was fine with the first choice 11 as it's been for the last few weeks. I think that gave Seattle the best chance to win. good to see Paul Rothrock back out there.
I know,
as always. So I don't know.
Thought he put in a good shift.
Do you have anything about the lineup that?
I think the only thing we had talked about and we got correct was we thought we would see Andy T out there, and I think that was a solid choice. And people were I saw an insane take of what someone thought or what they would put out there, and they had Raul starting with no Rusnak and PDLV out there. I don't really know what people expected from this match, but I feel like what they put out there was legitimately their best chance of winning.
Yeah, I mean, if they had put out a rotated lineup, there would have been even more angry takes.
Correct.
So I'm glad we didn't have to deal with that, frankly. But all right, let's talk about how this game played out itself, because I think my first observation from this game is that Seattle didn't do enough early in the game to set the tone and get on top of LAFC. This was a scenario where you had them playing on the road in a very advantageous environment, just like historically. If you look at Seattle's record in this building, they have lost 2 games, both of which were in PKs, I think, and this was the first time they ever lost in regulation. So historically, they have a huge advantage playing at this venue. We talked to the Happy Foot, Sad Foot guys all about that. We gave them the Starfire education. They didn't know what was coming.
They said I undersold how bad the turf was.
We tried to tell them. We tried to tell them. But the point is, like, you're playing an opponent that's playing in an adverse environment that's also tired, okay?
Yep.
They were coming off a very emotional loss in a final just days earlier. They were not all that rotated. Denny Bwanga was out there. Kai Kamara was out there. Bogus was out there. So they definitely had heavy legs. You could see that throughout the game. LAFC could not run their stuff like they normally could and like they normally do. And I noticed that right away. And I was like, okay, like, they're kind of sitting back a little bit. They're keeping Seattle, let them have possession. But as far as like getting up and down like they normally do, they really were not doing that. They were kind of just keeping the ball and then trying to loaf it over the top to Bwanga or another runner. And that was pretty much their game plan, which I was like, okay, Seattle needs to capitalize on this. They need to get on the front foot, get on top of LAFC, generate some like high percentage dangerous chances early, try and get in their heads a little bit, use the crowd and the environment to your advantage, set the tone, right?
Yep.
It didn't really feel like that ever happened. It felt like LAFC's game plan, they just kind of settled into it, and it was like there's not enough juice there.
Yeah, I agree. It felt like a team coming into a game scared a little bit. Like the Sounders were like a little bit timid. I felt like they knew they had a plan, but I don't think that they were fully sold that they were going to be able to execute it. And I feel like they kind of played like that. And I don't think that it was a bad plan necessarily as the game goes on and we'll cover. But yeah, I agree with you. I think LAFC, that first 45 minutes is so crucial on that field because it takes teams about 45 minutes to figure out what the hell to do with that
I mean,
field.
I was thinking more like 15 to 20. Like if you could get a goal in that first 15 to 20, that's you really need to do that if at all possible.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that Seattle was not able to score early in the game and in the first half, it let LAFC hang around. It gave them belief. And it's sort of, the longer you let a game like that stay 0-0, the more dangerous a game you are playing, especially against a team like this. So I really felt like it was a missed opportunity early in this match to get on top of a tired opponent that is playing in an unfamiliar, hostile venue. And like all the advantages that come with Starfire that Seattle has used to such great effect over the years, just they didn't capitalize on those in this game. And really, I was going to save this takeaway for later, but it's kind of a good segue. I'll just dish it now. I feel like the kind of the lore and the intimidation factor of Starfire is not really like a thing anymore. Like,
Ooh.
well, okay, this was the first game they ever lost in regulation, but like the Quakes game, the Quakes played them straight up and got them to PKs. They won the shootout.
Yeah.
And then last year, the Quakes like beat them. And then just in general, like how the games have been going, it's like they're hanging on for dear life. Seattle used to run all over people in that building, you know? And it just like hasn't, I don't know, maybe that's an overreaction to one game, but I'm kind of basing it off the last few Open Cup games that I've seen there. It just doesn't feel like it has the same intimidation factor that it used to. And it really, I don't know, to me, it just didn't feel like the home field advantage actually played that much of an effect last night. And it wasn't really because the crowd or the environment was lacking. The crowd was lit.
It was bumping.
It was bumping. ECS was going off.
Yeah.
Like people were ready. Like before kickoff, you could tell how hyped everyone was. It was loud.
LAFC had a pretty big contingent of people. Like it was probably the best Open Cup environment I've seen there in a long time.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So it wasn't like, but Seattle again couldn't take advantage of the boost that typically gives you, or at least has given them historically. So I think that is one factor that I think kind of led to this result. This game was all about these two controversial calls, so we're going to break these down. There's no goals until it was like the 83rd or so minute when LAFC gets awarded a penalty kick. So let's break down this penalty sequence.
They brought in a trainload of cash, Ari, and they paid these officials, Ari. They used those train tracks. That first train that came by, it didn't honk, Ari. You know what it was full of? It was full of dirty money for those officials.
So, a lot of people were very upset about this call. So both of these calls are tight.
Yeah.
Like they're very, very tight. They're both kind of 50-50 for me, but we can, I think, more than blaming the refs, I think sometimes in this situation, it is just interesting to talk about if they made the right call or not, just theory of the game type stuff. But also, I will say like the ref was bad, like out independent of these two calls in terms of like having control of the game and like what he was calling fouls and what he was letting go. There was no consistency and all. Like I get all that and I agree with all that. At the same time, it is the Open Cup. It would be more shocking if the ref was competent.
Correct. Yeah.
That is a variable that you're going to have to deal with and that both teams have to deal with in equal parts. So like overall, my take on the ref is that it's just kind of part of the game when it comes to these Open Cup games. But I do understand why these two calls in particular were controversial because they were both very like up for debate type calls. So let's talk about this penalty. Bogus lines up a shot. De La Vega and Alex Roldan are both jumping in the box to try and block the shot. They have their arms tucked. Alex Roldan does at least. But Bogus sends the shot right into De La Vega. It looked like you can't tell from the angle that I saw if the ball hits De La Vega in the arm before it like deflects off his arm before it hits Alex. As I understand it, on record, the handball went against Alex, not De La Vega. So I don't think De La Vega, like, I don't know if it's relevant, like if it hit, like where it hit on him, because I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure, like, I was told that Alex, the handball call was on Alex.
See, I had heard the opposite. So spit with that take, and then I'll spit with my view.
Okay.
Because people are taking your side, I feel like, too.
Well, I don't know if I really have a side other than that, like, it's a very tough call. I don't really know what he's supposed to do. As like, he's got his arms tucked. Like, I don't think his arm was out in an unnatural position.
Yeah, I would agree.
But you are kind of putting yourself in a dangerous situation, like, when you contest like that with, I kind of like the, maybe like put your arms behind your back. That a lot of defenders do, the Nuhu.
You do the chicken wings.
Yeah, exactly. And if it hits you in the chicken wing, maybe they call it, maybe they don't, but you maybe like, I think both the way De La Vega and Alex Roldan both went up, they were susceptible to that happening in that situation.
It was a reckless last ditch like thing that I think probably had that shot just gone off, I don't think he's scoring that.
I mean, it's bogus, so he might.
He might, but like
you do have to try and contest it. You do have to try and block it. But even with your arms in like this, if unless you contort your body so they're like really, the ball can't hit them. Like that can happen.
Yeah.
So I think really it's just it's a tough call, but it's very unlucky.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's just
unlucky regardless.
Yeah.
I think the way that I saw it in the clip that I saw, it clearly hits off of De La Vega's like outstretched arm as he's turning away. His arm's kind of like moving with his body. It deflects off his arm and hits Alex. And from what I thought, it was called on De La Vega, but Alex got a yellow for dissent and De La Vega
okay, that could
got
be true.
the yellow for the handball. Did he get a yellow? Because he got a yellow too as well.
They both got yellows, and people thought it was for handballs on both of them. But I thought at least one of them was for dissent.
I think one of our I think MLS Ref Stats, who follows me at least, think follows the show. That's what they had said.
I think here's the more important point with this call, which is that I'm actually going to institute a new policy.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. If you're playing at home and you get shut out, and you lose on a 50-50 PK call, if you didn't score yourself, then you shouldn't complain. You don't get to complain about the penalty. You know, like if you don't get shut out at home, that penalty call doesn't beat you. Okay,
right.
So I think that's how I look at it, at least on some level. Like you need to be able to score in this game, ideally before the 83rd minute. And you don't lose on that. You give yourself a chance. Now, however, with that being said, I have a take on this Jordan offside call that I know that a lot of people disagree with, but I'm going to cook on it because I saw a lot out there on Twitter that I'm not sure that I really see the same way as everyone else. Okay, and you can tell me
you're a free thinker.
You can
Ari.
tell me if you disagree with this.
I think we might agree.
Okay, I think we might not.
Oh,
so. There was like when I saw it live, I was like, "Oh, that's gonna be tight," but like I honestly couldn't tell. And then I didn't really like. I looked at the replay on Jada Evans or Jeremiah's computer, and I still couldn't really tell. But I was like, I don't really know if I don't really see him off there, but I could be wrong. And then I saw a bunch of screenshots coming out of people being like, "Oh yeah, this clearly shows that he was off." And I looked at all those screenshots, and he looks like he was on. He looks like he was on in those screenshots. Aaron Long looks like he's holding him on. I don't know if I'm taking crazy pills or if I'm seeing something that like, or other people are seeing something different than me. But I it's such a close call. Like I don't. Like if the ref called it offside on the field, I don't know. Like I can see how they would let that call stand.
Right.
But I'm just saying, like, based on what I saw, like the screenshots that people were tweeting out that showed him clearly off looks to me like he was on. I'm gonna pull one up for you, Noah.
Yeah, I'm ready. We're gonna do some live looking at this.
Tell me if I'm bugging, but I'm gonna show this to you right here.
Yeah.
That he says it's close, but it looks like he was indeed offside. Aaron Long is keeping him on right here.
Here's what I would see. There's a seam in the pitch right here between where this layer of turf goes across and this layer of turf goes across. If you follow that line all the way across, his foot is on the next seam of that strip of turf, and Aaron Long's is clearly like about half a foot or a foot in front of him. So I think he was offsides by the slightest of margins. But here's what I'm going to go with this. If you're going to give them a 50-50 penalty, let the person who actually can score a goal, let it stand.
Well, okay, so this is the other thing that I was going to say. And like, this is neither here nor there at this point. Like, it's not like, I'm not saying that Seattle deserved to win this game or anything like that. But like, the referees are literally trained to let that go. And then you can check the VAR and wave it off. That's like protocol now is in that situation, you're supposed to leave your flag down and then they check it after. If they had done that, there's no way, based on the screenshot that we were looking at or any of the replays that I've seen, that they could have overturned it. And I don't know. I just hate calls like this where we're talking about like blades of turf, Yep. It's just... it
was very clearly a AR that was not used to using VAR technology, because in our modern VAR world, you don't raise that flag unless it's miles offside, because you can check,
or that you can like clearly tell which.
Maybe he could
I don't
from
know.
there. I couldn't.
I know a lot of people definitely think that he was clearly offside. I just think at best it's another 50-50 debatable situation. Yeah. But again, like, if he called it off on the field, I can see why they didn't change it. But just really,
that one just stung so bad, though. Regardless of if it was like offside or not, to like the fact that they were fighting back, they were actually like, it was an onslaught of attacking capability. Georgie Manungu comes on. He's generating offense. He would have got a secondary assist on that goal.
Yeah.
Like, it felt so right. It felt like they had implemented a game plan. They had gone down, but they were like, it doesn't matter. We know we can come back from this, which is like that grit that we've been talking about, that we thought maybe the Sounders had lost that. But it was like, it was like so poetic. Death of the game. What was it, like 94th, 93rd?
No, it was a little earlier than that, but it was late. It was like late 80s.
It was like late 80s, death of the game. Just like, come on.
Oh God, I'm still pressed about it. So yeah, it gets called offside. Seattle gets shut out. Shout out and rest in peace to the Open Cup. It was a good run. Great tournament.
We did our best.
LAFC is hosting Sporting Kansas City now, the club of professional wrestling enthusiasts. This stings even more because Seattle would be hosting Sporting KC in the Open Cup final if they had won this game, which... I mean, they were competitive. They got close to pulling it off, but they couldn't quite do it. And it's just a really bad L for a whole host of reasons. You get eliminated from the Open Cup. You don't get the Champions Cup spot. And this is a good segue to just my rapid fire takeaways. I just got 3 of them this week. I'm going to lay them down. You can tell me what you think. But I mean, the other unfortunate thing about this is the LAFC owning Seattle storyline only has more fuel after this. I mean, they came in here 3 days after getting eliminated from the Leagues Cup by the Crew, who own them.
Yep.
And came into what's been historically one of if not the most difficult places to play anywhere in MLS, that any host venue that any team has. This offers like the statistically most prolific home field advantage in terms of what Seattle's record is here. They came in here and they executed their game plan perfectly. Like when you're in like a backs against the wall on the road playing on short rest with heavy legs type situation, you really cannot play it any better than they did.
Yeah.
They slowed the game down when they needed to. They did not let Seattle get cooking in transition. They mucked the game up in midfield. Dude,
Kai Kamara was doing the devil's work out there. That man was just a disruptor.
They were able to manage the pace of play and like the tempo, like I think better than any road team I've ever seen. Like even in those Quakes games, those were like frantic back and forth.
That was track meet.
That was energy drink type stuff.
Yeah.
And the Quakes get sucked into that type of thing. LAFC, I mean, credit to them. They managed the game extremely well. And when you do that, you give yourself a chance. Like if for a crazy penalty call like that to happen, and they executed it perfectly, and Seattle just didn't, like I said earlier, they just didn't capitalize on all the advantages that they had in this situation, which I really think it was a lot of this game was going to come down to getting on top of them early, not giving them that like hope that they developed over the course of the game, the longer it stayed 0-0.
Yeah.
And I think Seattle kind of got what they deserved in that respect, because if you can't score a goal in the game, at least before that offside goal and before that penalty goal happens, like you're asking for it, aren't you? You're asking for that exact outcome. And it's, I'm just so sick of watching LAFC do this.
Yeah. And
they can't keep getting away with it.
Honestly, like I agree with you 100%. This is the best that Seattle have played LAFC in the last I don't even know, couple years. Like,
and it took a lot of crazy variables.
No, exactly. I was going to say it took LAFC on short rest after bombing out of another major tournament. A field that is like statistically and emotionally draining, and like they still couldn't even do it. And honestly, we were very lucky that LAFC weren't up 1-0 even before that penalty.
That's
because
right.
Jackson Reagan made the most insane big melon dome clearance I've ever seen in my life.
But he knew nothing about it.
No.
Not at all.
He woke up like 10 minutes after that play.
Yeah, like that was Kai Kamara, like just unleashed a rocket right on target, and Jackson Reagan was just standing there and it hit him in the face.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason that wasn't a goal. So yeah, you're right.
And like maybe with goal line technology, that's a goal. You know what I mean? Like he was standing in the goal. You never know. Like it just sucks that the best we can do against like the best team in the West is not even win against like their diminished squad.
It took all those variables of Leagues Cup and the travel and the Starfire variable to get it to a 50-50 toss up, and you still couldn't score a goal. You still couldn't beat them. I mean, they own you.
They own us.
Like, that's just the cold, hard, unfortunate reality of the situation. There's no way at this point that you can look at 8-0-2 and come to any other conclusion. And that is sadly going to be the case until Seattle beats this team.
Yep.
And like, there's a very feasible scenario where these teams play in the playoffs again.
Yeah.
Seattle would have to go to LA, BMO Stadium in that circumstance. I mean, do you have any faith at all that they would even be competitive there?
No,
like,
not at all.
Why would anyone? You know, there's like no track record to lean on anymore, you know? And the 2019 Western Conference Championship was a long time ago, man. Like, we're talking about a 10-game sample size of this stuff here. And you will not have a better opportunity to buck that trend than this. And the fact that they couldn't take advantage of it, and with a trip to a final on the line, man, it's tough. Hurts.
That was like the most heartbreaking LAFC loss for me, simply because I kind of expected it to happen, but at the same time, it was like the stars were aligning in a way that they will never align again. And somehow, some way, we still fumbled.
Yeah, so that kind of brings me to my next takeaway, which, this gap has to be closed for Seattle to be a trophy contender again. If you can't get through this team, you're not going to be winning anything. And I think there's quite a lot of work to be done to close that gap. Signings need to be made. The roster needs to be bolstered. And that's going to happen before the start of next season, man.
It has to. It should have started already.
And I think that's where the irritation, people have they have righteous irritation in that sense, because it feels like something that could have been predicted and accounted for, you know. And I don't know. It's just tough. And then I wanted to do De La Vega takes, just because we've been doing that every time he plays. He didn't really make the impact subbing on that I would have liked to have seen, and he got called for the handball. But
this was literal opposite of what I wanted and predicted.
Yeah. So not the best De La Vega shift. He's still working his way back to fitness, and this was a Starfire game. He's never cooked on Starfire before.
Bro was just as confused as LAFC.
There was a lot, like Hugo Lloris was out there. Seeing Hugo Lloris and Bawanga at Starfire, that was pretty fun.
Yeah.
It's stuff that you don't really see every day. Paul Rothrock.
Giroux was there too.
Hugo Lloris going at it on that tiny
fire.
turf field.
Yeah.
So anyway, De La Vega, it's still good to see him healthy, and hopefully basically any prospect that this team has of contending this year is predicated on him having like a late season breakout, which I don't think that's particularly likely given his fitness levels, and just like he doesn't really look like that sharp yet.
He doesn't look good.
He didn't look good in this game. I thought he looked good in the Minnesota game.
But there's nothing to play for there. You know what I mean?
League points.
I mean, yeah, but it's like, I don't know.
There's
a
a lot more on the line in this game against a much better opponent.
Yeah.
So I'll grant that. But I would say I still think there's reason to be hopeful that he can have an impact going into this last stretch of games and into the playoffs. But it's certainly That's not a guarantee. And if that doesn't happen, like, you're going to get to the playoffs and you're going to have to play one of the LA teams or Real Salt Lake on the road. That is,
we pray for the Galaxy.
But even that is going to be like the last time they went there, they lost.
That's true. Yeah.
And I still would not want. I would not want to mess with Ricky Puig and Joey Paints and Gabriel Peck in an elimination game in their building at all. Not with the team in this state. So. Like, it's going to be an uphill battle to actually contend this year, but there's still a scenario where it could happen, I guess. But
God damn it, Ari!
It's just a tough L to stomach, man. This is a tough L to stomach.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words a little bit because we tried so hard but got nowhere, and in the end, it didn't even matter. What's the point? What are we gonna do? I guess we'll just have to hit agenda check to get ourselves through this.
Let's hit this agenda check, and then we'll get to your questions. I've only got 3 agendas written down for this week. You can let me know if I forgot anything.
Yeah.
But so I have the Craig Weibs "Everything is Fine" agenda. Craig Weibs at his presser a couple weeks ago famously said that. What was the quote? He said, "I won't lie. I'm not. I would be lying to say that I'm disappointed
with where the
team is at, or something." And I think the main thing was the rationale he used was, we're in this. We've got this far in the Leagues Cup. We got this far in the Open Cup. We're in this playoff spot. So this season's actually going pretty well if you look at the fact that we're contending for all these trophies and we're in like decent playoff positioning. Like, it was really a bad start. We've been hot lately and it's all good. I mean, you just got eliminated from 2 out of the 3 tournaments that he mentioned by the same team, which is the team that you're chasing right now.
Which isn't even the best team in the league, by the way.
No. I mean, they're top 2 to 3.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, Inter Miami and Columbus, both better. Columbus, much better. So that's the team you're chasing in the West, though, and they eliminated you from 2 out of those 3 tournaments and eliminated you in the playoffs last year. All 3 at home, by the way. All 3 in your own building. They came in here and punked you in your own building. So
they robbed you at your house.
Basically, the way I see it, you have to make a run. You have to make a run to MLS Cup for this agenda to hold weight. Otherwise, you're hanging your hat on like competing but not winning anything, and that's just not what this team is about. This team's about.
It's about trophies.
It's about trophies, and I think that's like the thing at the end of the day is like playing at 1.6 points per game and then getting beat by LAFC in for everything that matters. That's like not what this club has traditionally aspired to and prided itself on. So like there's a standard that's got to be met here that with how much they've been getting dominated by LAFC lately, it's just like not getting met right now.
I think honestly this is on life support. If I'm Craig Weibel, I'm like actually a little bit scared. Like I'm a little bit scared for my job, just potentially, because I understand the restrictions that they were under, but the fact that your rationale behind everything and behind being okay with, and not even showing disappointment, or like, we could have done better. Like taking a little bit of responsibility is, hey, we're in Leagues Cup, man. Which like, yeah, I think people were like, oh, we have a chance. Maybe if we can beat LAFC, like we can get there. We could maybe do this. Boom, LAFC cooks you. And then it's like, okay, it's fine. We still have 2 more. We still can win Open Cup. We can be the first MLS club to 5. We can, we have like, there was something historical and important to play for. And boom, LAFC beats your ass again.
And you had them like in the perfect scenario.
And then now it's like, okay, yeah, we can make the playoffs. Sure. Can we go on a run? Yeah. Is there historic precedent that we can do that? Absolutely. But guess who you're going to have to play up against? LAFC. And now fans are like, I got duped once. I got duped twice. I'm not getting duped again.
Yeah, I mean, and like even if by some miracle LAFC gets knocked out before you have to play them, like you're gonna have to play the Galaxy or RSL on the road,
right?
And those teams are really good too. Like you have to be able to hang with teams like that. And I don't know. I mean, they did boat race the Galaxy last time they played, but going to their place in the playoffs, that's a whole different animal. And I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think you're right. This agenda is on life support. The second one I had was is LAFC more hated than Portland agenda? So we brought this one up at Fast Fashion, and it got a pretty negative response. The Coop from the Cooler Guild wasn't happy with us because, everyone knows. Okay, everyone knows that Portland is the most hated rival. Like, I know all the history, obviously, and I don't think the question is really like who's the bigger rival, but it's more just like, who do you hate more at the moment?
Yeah.
And I think that's a different question than who's your bigger rival. So maybe we could have framed it differently. But
this is way better clickbait, Ari.
But right now, LAFC just grinds my gears more than any team in the league because this is about as much as you can own another team. Like, it really is.
Yeah.
The only saving grace is the 2019 Western Conference Championship and the fact that Seattle does have CONCACAF.
Yeah.
So those are two things that Seattle can point to. But just if we're talking purely head-to-head results over the last 2 years, it's a joke. It's a joke.
And listen, do I think about Portland on a daily basis? Absolutely not. I genuinely do not think of them.
I think about Denny Bwanga.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like I don't fear Portland. And maybe that's a little bit of cynicism from getting our ass handed to us a bunch of times.
They were doing the same thing before the last game.
Yeah, exactly. But, it was like we got our get back, and now I'm like, all right, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? It's like, we got Paul Rothrock. He'll handle business. It's all good.
They're just not as relevant in the scope of the league right now as LAFC is. LAFC has established themselves as one of the standard bearers in the league in terms of their roster building and their fan support and their organization and everything like that. Portland, not as much. So I don't know. Some people probably don't take that into account, but I definitely do.
I agree.
And then we have the Georgie should get more minutes agenda. I got this marked down as strengthened because I think he a few people said he should have subbed on earlier, and I agree because you mentioned it when we were talking about this a couple weeks ago. Starfire's his office.
It's his office.
That's
dude.
Where he throws down.
Yeah, that's his grandma's house, bro.
He could have made if he'd had more time, maybe he makes a bigger impact. But even he had the secondary assist on the JMO goal that got waved off. So he made a play. And anyway, I'm down to see him play more. I still don't know how functionally different what he gives you right now is going to be than what you get from Leo Chu, but there is.
But if they're going to move Leo Chu,
yeah, that, but also with Leo Chu, with Georgie you don't.
Correct.
So there's the allure of the unknown and also the possibility that it legitimately pops and you're all right, this is a guy that can actually be a first teamer for us.
Yeah,
so.
It's like in Football Manager when you're scouting players, you sign a dude who you think's going to be a wonder kid and he turns out to be a 3-star. And then Georgie, it's another one. You're oh shit, 5-star potential, baby, but we don't know till we see. But I was encouraged by his performance, and I thought we sure as hell didn't lose the game because he was on the field, and I would have loved to see more minutes from him. But I also kind of understand when he came in and why he came in. The Sounders were kind of handling the game up until that penalty, and then when shit goes off the rails and you got to push everyone forward, that's when he comes on and he generates a lot more offense. But maybe seeing him early the game would have played out differently. Who knows? But
yeah, I hope we get to see him play a little more down this. Congrats to him for signing, by the way.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and I think it shows the work he's put in, and also just the fact that he's a pretty talented guy. So hopefully we get to see him more in this last run of games for the end of the season and into the playoffs. All right, let's get to questions, Noah.
Let's do it.
We've got them lined up here. What do we got?
We zipped in, we put on our hazmat suits and waded into the Twitter replies. Thank you all for your questions. As always, if you are looking to get your question answered, hop into Ari's mentions on Twitter. Let's start here. Dougie asks, how chalked is the season now? Because even if we make it to the playoffs, we will. We can't beat LAFC, and we would need to go through them at some point to get to the cup.
Yeah, we were kind of just talking about that, but it's seeming pretty chalked for that exact reason. It's just pretty hard to come up with a scenario where in a one-off playoff game at LAFC, or like I said, even at the Galaxy or at RSL, where Seattle gets by those teams. Like it could, I'm not saying that it's impossible. Like I thought it was pretty impossible in 2019, and they won that game. That 2019 team was, that was like peak Nico, peak Raul, though.
Yeah.
You know, that was a great team in its own right.
Yeah.
Like this team has been playing at 1.5, 1.6 points per game. They've been playing, to be fair, they've been playing at 2 points per game over a very large sample size against everyone who's not LAFC. But that's the problem.
Yep.
Like when you look at the evidence of when they go head to head against LAFC, there's just a very stark gap. So yeah, no, Dougie, I think you're pretty much right, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think our best chance of making a cup, and I'm not going to say winning a cup, is if someone else knocks LAFC out.
For sure.
From some godforsaken reason. Like if like
they love to fumble.
They do love to fumble. And like we will be watching that in this cup final against Sporting, which I will get to who we each personally will be rooting for. But I forgot to mention this. They got us back with champagne after beating us a 10th time on the Happy Foot Sad Foot podcast. So,
honestly, that could not be more fair.
Yeah.
I knew that we were opening ourselves up to that, and I am totally okay with that. Like you know, I've been clear that the reason we take so much joy in LAFC fumbling finals is because that's like all we have right now. So
that's how shocked we are. All we have is watching a club be so successful that we can only hope for them to lose
when they make finals, which they do in pretty much every tournament.
They're addicted to making finals
and fumbling too.
It's you know.
But you know, I forgot to tell you this. This was actually funny. Someone came up to me at the game when I was walking to the press box, and they said, "Hey Ari, I love the champagne bit," and I said, "Thanks. I didn't think of it. It was Noah."
Well, hey,
so I gave you your credit.
Thank you, Ari. We wouldn't be here without each other.
Shout out to that guy.
Shout out to that guy. I met so many people at that game. That was great. There was a lot of you sickos out there. We love you guys. Seriously.
Okay, what's next?
We'll hit the next one. Sorry, we're getting in here. Next one from Saffron Elephant. Agenda. Sounders will not win any hardware until they can beat LAFC.
That's a good one for the agenda check, and it's a true statement. Like you have to be able to beat this team. Like 10 straight games, man. I can't believe that. Like I don't know if I've like seen anything to this extent. Like in MLS, there's like parity. There's teams you usually no matter how much of a differential there is in quality, there will be some result where like you're playing on short rest or you have injuries or international absences, and then a team that's not as good as the other team gets one over on them, like just purely because of those variables. Seattle had those variables. That's why I felt pretty good going into this game. Not because I think Seattle's anywhere close to as good as LAFC, because they're not, but like because you had them on the ropes with the circumstances and you still couldn't do it.
Still couldn't do it. I mean, listen, I look at history. I look back to look forward. The last time we won something significant where we had to like face that team was when we beat them in 2019? Yeah. So there you go. That's agenda smashed, demolished. Correct. This next one comes from Matt Drumdog. Honestly, good L. Maybe now the FO will finally grasp that this roster is simply not good enough to truly hang with the big boys. Really wanted to win the Open Cup against the club of professional wrestling enthusiasts, but it would have been validation for a timid transfer approach / roster build. How do you feel about that?
I mean, that could be true, but like honestly, man, I think there's like a lot of changes that were coming regardless, just because like just from a practical standpoint, like there's no way Raul is going to be back as a DP, so you're going to have to replace one right there.
Yep.
So there will be a new DP from that perspective. And then also, I think there's going to be a decision made on JP, whether he's going to be back. There's going to be a decision made on whether Obed signs like a U22 extension or if he gets sold. So like, I think if there's an upshot to any of this, it's that there's going to be changes and turnover out of necessity, you know? So like the team is going to look pretty different next year. I think the source of irritation is just that like the feeling that this could have been planned for, and like the transition could have started sooner and just been handled in a way that would have allowed Seattle to actually compete with the big boys this year instead of just basically becoming LAFC's lapdog.
What it feels like to me is what I would do in elementary school, middle school, high school, and college, where I would wait till the last second to do my assignment, speed through it, and would not do very well. Like, I'm honestly scared that, yes, there is going to be all this roster turnover, but do you truly believe that in one window, maybe two, 1.5, 2 windows, they can restructure this whole squad? And do you have trust that Craig Weibel, who wasn't even able to get half of a deal across the finish line in this last window, do you really have confidence he could do that?
Yeah, see, I guess one thing I would say to that is that, like, I don't think blowing up the whole squad and like starting over from scratch is necessarily what needs to happen.
I agree
here.
with you.
Like, I think if there's something that we've learned this year that's positive, trying to be positive, it's that the foundation that's in place is solid and that there's some stuff that you can work with here. I really think, some people disagree with me, but I really think that the Rusnak-Morris duo is shown that it can be very dynamic and productive in MLS. I think the defense for the most part has played pretty well this year, but I do think what we were talking about with Nico Moreno a couple years ago of them being too easy to play through in midfield at times, is something that needs to be addressed. But like overall, like the spine of the team, the goalkeeping between, we'll see what happens with Fry. He's almost 40, but like I think Andy T has shown out this year. I think Jackson Reagan this last month has started to look like a foundational piece again. I think Ymar is still an upper tier CB in MLS. I would like to see a fullback addition. I think you need a Brad Smith, Jovan Jones type attacking fullback that can bring something that Nuhu and Alex Roldan have not been bringing this year, and that RBW is just simply not ready to bring on a consistent basis. So I think that's one area of need. I agree with Nico that like a destroyer type 6, like an Aussie type. Yeah, this team doesn't have enough like nastiness and bite to it, which is something that I've actually been saying for a while. Like, it's a little too many nice guys. Like, you need it.
Paul Rothrock can't hold down the whole mean guy bit.
Like, you need a little bit of that like juice and swagger and nastiness. So I want to see him sign a D-mid that has some of those attributes. And then the biggest thing is just more dynamic and consistent production from out wide. Like, your 10 and your 9 can't shoulder everything week after week, but just because once you play against an elite defense like LAFC, like they're going to be able to mitigate that a little better. Like you can get away with like a soft part of your schedule, just running Rusnak and Morris like up the middle, and that clearly can power you through that. But like, I think to ascend to the next level, you gotta get more production from out wide, which was what De La Vega was supposed to do. But like, what I think is like, you got to make a signing that addresses that kind of treats De La Vega as if like anything that you get from him is like a luxury at this point. And frankly, you tell me what you think of this, but I think we've talked about this, but I think signing like a DP number 9, like they did with Raul a few years ago, like a player of that mold who you think can get you like 15 to 20 goals at least, like that type of player, and then having the flexibility of starting that guy and then moving Jordan back out wide, and then when that DP needs to rotate out or whatever the case may be, then you can play Jordan up top again, like you've been doing very well this year. I think that's the approach I would take, rather than keeping Jordan as the lone centerpiece number 9 and then signing a winger, if that makes sense.
I think that's an interesting piece. I think as Jordan ages, though, the problem is going to be he's going to get slower, and being a winger, big body guy who's not necessarily going to beat you with speed is not really helpful. Like, he's a great 9 simply because he is really fast, but also in the last few years, he's gotten a lot stronger and physically better with the ball being played into him over the top, through the, like in weird positions. So I kind of fear like it's just the normal trajectory of certain players, right? Like as players age, they lose certain abilities and gain others. I don't know. I think I think they are genuinely in one of the toughest roster situations of any team in the league, because while on paper and in person, it looks like they have a really solid core, if one little piece comes crumbling down, it's going to be so hard to build around. And I really think like a big piece that isn't being talked about as much, and you hit on it, is JP. Because we've seen Atencio and Obed play together, who are supposed to apparently be the future in the next, two together. They look lost without each other.
That double pivot, like, it could well be effective at some point, but I would sign somebody there. I would not bank on that, because like, for however many positive attributes both those players have, which there are many, like Obed in particular is having a phenomenal year, but they don't bring that nastiness and that bite that I was talking about. Like, you need to, like Flores from Toronto was the guy that Nico brought up. Like, you need a guy like that, like a ball winner, guy who's going to get into tackles, going to get some yellow cards, like an Aussie type player. That's what I want, at least. If I could pick one profile of player to sign, it would be that. And then, you got to sign a Raul replacement. And, a lot of people want to move off Rusnak. I think, that's, if you find someone that is better, then fine.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with building the offense around him again next year.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people disagree with that, but I've seen enough this year where if you can, I would focus more on building the reinforcements around him than I would on replacing him. But that being said, like, I'm not, if they find someone who's better, by all means, go get him. It's just, that's harder to find than I think people realize.
Yeah, no, I agree. And not to belabor the point, we'll wrap it up here. But I think that what happened that's really just going to make this process so difficult is the fact that they didn't do anything in this summer window. The fact that they didn't buy out a DP, the fact they didn't make any movement or any talks or whatever that could actually went anywhere, because now you're in a situation where you have Rusnak, who, like, you could make a centerpiece, or you could go out and find someone else. The fact that, like, they don't have that option now. Now it's like Rusnak has all the leverage to be like, well, I'm going to be a DP. He's coming off some of the best production I've ever seen, so he completely deserves that salary from that point of view. So I don't know. I really think the Sounders are in the shit with this roster rebuild, and I just don't know if I have faith that Craig is going to be able to actually redo all of that in one or two windows to be competitive. So
it's a fair point. Thanks for that question, Matt.
I think that's the longest question we've ever cooked on, but I think we're going to wrap it up there. Sorry for those who we had to skip, but
we only have so much time.
Exactly.
Appreciate, as always, everyone who submitted. You can always crash my mentions to get the discourse flowing. All right, before we preview this Timbers game that's on Saturday, we wanted to talk about the Open Cup final that's now set, because Sporting Kansas City, the club of professional wrestling enthusiasts, beat Indy 11 pretty handily. I was covering that game. Wasn't really much of a game. It could have been a lot worse than 2-0. So they're going to be traveling to face LAFC, who obviously beat Seattle. And that is what I call a lose-lose situation. I don't really want either of these teams to win the Open Cup, but that does bring up some good fodder for debate, because we can talk about who we're rooting for. And I'll just start, Noah. I'm definitely rooting for Sporting KC. Only because like LAFC fumbling another final at home to this Sporting KC team, which is not good. They've gone on an Open Cup run. Credit to them for making the final. They're having a really bad year in league play. Bad team. Soccer, not good at it.
Nope.
Yeah. So, like, I'm fully expecting them to get boat raced by LAFC. I don't think this game is going to be competitive or close at all. I think LAFC wins by multiple goals easily. But that would make it all the funnier if LAFC fumbles this. Like, we're getting more champagne and we're getting hammered on the next podcast.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, and like, let's review who Sporting has had to play. Tulsa, FC Dallas, and Indy 11 to get here. They have not faced any real competition in this tournament.
Chance. Like, they have no chance.
They're about to face a demon at LAFC. they're so cooked, but
I think they like they're more cooked in this scenario than just about any team. Because they're like bottom of the table.
Yeah,
like
they're
most
not
teams
good.
like you've seen teams in the past. There's a year famously where DC United was like wooden spooning and they won the Open Cup.
Yeah.
So like that stuff can happen and it's happened in the past. This is very much an example of a lower tier team in MLS right now. Like you said, like let's face it, capitalizing on an easy path. Now they have to play a juggernaut. Like you said, Denny Bouanga, an evil demon spawned from the gates of hell. Like. I don't even know if I want to watch this game because of how chalked Sporting KC is.
Yeah, I will be rooting for Sporting. As a former employee, I am mandated by the law to root for them. But also, like, God, how nice would it be for another final fumble, like back to back? Like, I've gotten a lot of new LAFC followers from this most recent podcast we did. I fear they may unfollow me all if Sporting wins because I will be in. I still have my Sporting jersey. I will be running around waving that thing up in the air, dude. It's not even going to be funny.
Yeah, like so I'm rooting for Sporting KC, but
we will be blackout drunk if they win on a pod.
No, I definitely like don't. It's not like I have my hopes up or have like all that much emotional investment in it. Like as soon as LAFC scores the first goal, I'm not gonna feel anything.
Yeah. But listen, if you hate or if you love the Open Cup and you hate the Club of Professional Wrestling Enthusiasts, think about it this way. The Open Cup is all about underdogs. And who is the underdog in this match? Sporting Kansas City. Therefore, by those rules, you have to root for them.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they troll a PK victory. I don't know. It could happen. Doesn't feel very, very promising, though. All right. You had one more topic you wanted to hit before we do this Portland preview. No,
yes. I know this is going to be a long pod, but folks, we had to lay this down. With this most recent week of results, we saw the Leagues Cup final happen where Columbus just basically put the spanking on LAFC, and then now LAFC coming in and putting the spanking on the Sounders. And I really wanted to pose this question, Ari. Is the West just a complete joke compared to the East? How big of a talent gap is there compared to LAFC and Inter Miami and LAFC and Columbus?
I don't know about complete joke, but there's certainly a pretty big gap right now. I still think like they're flying a little bit under the radar right now because Messi's been hurt and like they haven't really had their full complement of players. But like I still think Inter Miami is the most loaded MLS team I've ever seen, and I still think that they play the best ball that I've ever seen an MLS team play. I saw a tweet from somebody, I can't remember who, that I disagreed with. That's why I'm bringing it up. They like after the Crew won, they said like Columbus clearly plays the best soccer of any MLS team they've ever seen. Don't think so, man. I think this Inter Miami team on their day, you might disagree with me. No, a lot of people might disagree with me. I would take Miami in a one-off over Columbus. Like, assuming full strength, I would. And I would not feel very much like anxiety about that pick. Like, and you have to, I'm assuming like Messi is full go operational. I'm assuming the Barca boys are all healthy. So like, if any of those variables come into play where it's like a depleted or injured Inter Miami team, then yeah, like the Crew for sure can win. But like an Eastern Conference championship between those two sides, like I would pick Miami. All of that's to say, like Columbus is very much like they have a good argument for being considered on that tier. They actually have the trophies to show for it this year. So like, I'm basing it just on like eye test of like the type of soccer that they're playing. But Columbus, they play if they don't play the best ball in the league, they easily play the clearly second best ball in the league, and they've won MLS Cup and they won Leagues Cup.
Yeah.
So like those two teams right there are clearly the best in the league, and they're both in the East. Cincinnati, before they got destroyed by injuries, were I think probably just as good as LAFC in the Galaxy.
100%.
Definitely as good as
I think they were better.
They easily, I don't know. LAFC Cincy is a good debate at least.
Yeah.
But like,
but that's like team number 3. in the East.
Yeah, exactly. And then even getting down to the year that the Red Bulls are having, that's where it becomes more like they could be like a team in the West.
Yeah.
But like they're still having a really good year. But I think that top three of Miami, Cincinnati, and Columbus are definitely, I mean, that's better than the LA squads and Salt Lake. Like really right now in the West, like the LA squads are running it, and the Galaxy, for as much credit as we've given them on this pod, like they've shown signs of fraudulence at times, and I think LAFC basically still runs the West. So no, I think there's something to what you're saying. Like the East is definitely a lot better.
Yeah, like, and the way that I wanted to also approach it to you is like, let's look at the table here. 5, 6, and 7 in the West. Seattle Sounders, Vancouver Whitecaps, Portland Timbers. You have the Pacific Northwest conglomerate. 4, 5, and 6 in the Eastern Conference. New York Red Bulls, New York City FC, and Charlotte FC. There is a very large skill gap, in my opinion, or just quality gap right now, between the Red Bulls, NYCFC, and Charlotte versus Seattle, Vancouver, and Portland.
I don't know. I think the Red Bulls are better than those. I think NYC, they're a big upside team. Like they look really awesome at times, but they're a very young team that's susceptible to taking bad results because of their inexperience.
They do troll a lot of draws.
And then Charlotte, I kind of see as a team that's pretty much on that exact Seattle, Vancouver, Portland level. So like, I think the top is much stronger.
And
then once
heavy.
you get into the mids, it's pretty comparable. But like the top of the East is just so much better than the top of the West.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, then if you look at the bottom, Chicago Fire, Nashville, DC versus Sporting St. Louis and the Earthquakes. I still think the East beats out there, but that's like dang.
That's a tough
some
list.
Of the worst teams.
It's funny looking at this right now. Chicago, Nashville, and DC all have the exact same record.
Yeah.
And pretty similar goal differentials. They're all having like the exact same season, which is kind of interesting. But no, I mean, it is the East is running the league right now, and I fully I think LAFC, if they have to go, if they have to travel for MLS Cup to Columbus or Miami, like I don't think they're winning that.
I guess I wanted to ask too. I feel like this shift happened in the last like 3 or 4 years, because I think in the past the West was pretty heavy-handed, and I'm sure that this is the cycle of the league. But do you remember or have any note of like when you think that switch kind of happened?
I feel like it's sort of been in the last like 2 to 3 years where it became more stark, because Columbus has really only gotten insanely good in the last couple years. Miami has only gotten insanely good in the last year or two. And then Cincinnati was one of the worst teams in the league for a while. So
Same as Miami.
These are like teams that, these are teams that are like, have been on the ascent for the last 1 to 2 years and are now like at their apex. So I think it's sort of just kind of how like teams have cycles, right? And all three of those teams, their cycles just kind of lined up at the same time, and they all just happen to be in the East. But like, from 2014 to like 2020, I'm sure if you actually went back and looked at it, it would fluctuate by the season a little bit, like which conference was stronger. But I feel like the West definitely was stronger than it has been this year, where this is kind of the weakest I can remember the West being in a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I thought last year the West was pretty weak, but for me, I don't know. I think the only team that can even compete with the top of the East is LAFC, and clearly they can't.
Yeah, like they haven't shown that they can. I mean, the crew have the best goal differential in the league. You know, just looking at the table right here, it's like it just seems pretty obvious that it's honestly Miami and Columbus who are running it right now.
Yeah, which I guess I'll cement this segment with a Sounders-related question. If we see a team like FC Cincinnati and Inter Miami go from bottom of the table, wooden spoon contending, cheating, sanctioned clubs to God mode world beaters, do we think the Sounders can do that? And is that going to happen whether we spend a lot of money or not a lot of money?
Yeah, it can happen. Fortunes can change very quickly in MLS. And really all it takes is, I think when you have the foundation that Seattle has, some of the players that they already have in place, like hitting on one big attacking signing, that'd be huge. Like that could boost this team a lot, you know? So I really, it's just a matter of if they're able and willing to do that, you know? But like, I guess I might see it a little differently than some people in that, like, I think there is a lot of work to do with the roster. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's crazy far off. They just need to actually like do that work and not keep putting it off. But like MLS, as much as any league with the salary cap and how it's set up, like your fortunes can change on a dime with like
one good signing
by hitting on like realistically, Seattle needs to hit on 2 of their next big signings, and they need to be big hits to get there. But that's doable. It's not impossible.
Right.
You just have to do it.
Well, yeah. There we go. Let's get in to our secondary rival with the Portland Timbers.
Okay, yeah. The Seattle Sounders are going to Providence Park on Saturday, where they'll be taking the Portland Timbers.
I don't want to, Ari.
Yeah, which is not great timing for this matchup, coming off this loss to LAFC. You know, a dub over LAFC would have really drastically helped the vibes before this game. But yeah, I can tell you about the Portland Timbers. The Portland Timbers are, they're not that good, but they do score a lot of goals. They're one of the most dynamic offensive teams in the league, but they love to get bammed on. They give up a ton of goals. I can actually tell you exactly how many right now. They've given up 46. 46 goals this year, which is the most out of any team above the playoff line. Like, the teams with the worst defenses in the West are Sporting Kansas City, St. Louis, and San Jose, who have all given up over 50 goals. San Jose has given up 61
Dude,
goals,
that rocks.
which is crazy. Negative 28 GE. But Portland has given up 46 goals. They've scored 54, which is the most out of any team that's of any team in the West. And the second most, it looks like, of any team in the league. Inter Miami has scored 58, but the Portland Timbers have scored 54 goals. Second most in the league. Their home record is 7-2-4, so they're pretty hard to beat at Providence Park. Seattle did hand them one of those L's at Providence Park earlier this season.
Some remember.
It was a 2-1 victory. That was Rudy Diaz scored a really sick goal in that game.
That was before our Sounder Hard days.
It was, yeah. It was a long time ago. But so that was an important dub because for as much as LAFC has dominated Seattle in recent times, Portland was doing the exact same thing leading up to that game, and Seattle finally snapped that streak. So you can at least go into this game with that kind of psychological weight not on your mind anymore.
It's a get-back game, too.
It's a get-right game. I don't know why they're playing. I think they play again in Seattle, like, later, like to close out the season, before decision day.
I thought it was the final decision day game.
I think it might. It's either a decision day game or the one right before it. It's like one of those two. But either way, it's the second straight game that they're going to play down at Providence. And I'll have to fact check this. Someone can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that both Jonathan Rodriguez and Felipe Mora are going to be out for this game. I'm not sure if that's injury or suspension related, but if that's the case, that kneecaps their offense a little bit. Those are two of their best goal scorers. Felipe Mora is a very solid, consistent goal scorer for them, and Jonathan Rodriguez is their big time DP signing, who it doesn't seem like he's fully broken out, but he's definitely, I mean, he came from Club America, but also, so that could make it a little harder for Portland to score and produce at the clip that they normally do. They do still have Evander, though, who has kind of quietly become one of the more productive attackers in the league. He's having a good season. He keeps
doing his bit, too.
He's doing the bit where he plays like a bot and then comes out of nowhere with, like, it would not surprise me if he scores some insane.
He'll score a worldie for sure
in this game.
He won goal of the week over Albert last week too, off of like a ridiculous free kick.
This guy is having a good year, man. He's got 12 goals, 15 assists.
Yeah.
So he is definitely like one to watch out for. Yeah, it's tough. But I guess Seattle can hope that Portland, being a little shorthanded in this game, can play to their advantage. And then also, a Cascadia rivalry game like this, that's like a real like rivalry with history that like the LAFC rivalry dynamic just doesn't have. Like your form, like we say it all the time going into these games, but your current form, what just happened to you in your last game, it really like doesn't
throw it
matter.
out the window.
It doesn't matter. So a dub in this game would go a long way in turning the vibes around after the LAFC L. Seattle needs it. Seattle's right there for a top 4 spot in the West, by the way. So, for however much doom and gloom there is going on right now after the Open Cup exit, understandably, there's a lot to play for. Like, you're playing to vault the Rapids, who are you're only 1 point off their pace, played the same amount of games. So a dub here and a Salt Lake loss, and if Colorado don't win, you're tied for you're up there towards.
You're
third.
within 1 point.
You're up there towards third. Yeah. So
which let's be fair though. The Rapids are playing Dallas, and RSL is playing the Revs. So we need a little bit of luck there.
You do, but you never know what could happen. Maybe one of those teams troll a draw for you. So
true.
Either way, if you get the dub, it doesn't matter what they do. You at least can keep that pace and stay in the mix for getting at least that first playoff game at home, which would be huge. So yeah, it's a big game. I would normally be going. Unfortunately, I'm going to be on the East Coast this weekend, but I will be watching. So we will have the.
They should have you on the Apple TV Plus broadcast.
I know they should. I'm not going to be in NYC, unfortunately. I'm going to be in Philly, home of the Philly Union. But
better city anyway.
Yeah, but we'll have that post game pod for you, like we said on. We can shoot for Tuesday, but hedge on Wednesday, one of those 2 days. But yeah, unless you have anything else, Noah, I think we can call it a wrap there for episode 61. Thank you all so much, as always, for tuning in. We really appreciate the support and the listenership that we're seeing, our YouTube audience. We appreciate you guys for helping us expand on there. Hopefully the whole video will be up this week instead of cutting out in the middle. But I think we managed to fix that issue. Like, comment, rate, subscribe.
Go write us a review on your podcast platform of choice.
Yeah, that helps. Sub to the YouTube for sure.
For sure. Give your grandmother a hug.
Yeah. sounderattheart.com/LS.
Yep.
Thank you to Patrick for being our Yamar.
Thank you, Patrick.
Help us on the road to 29, though. I know there's one person out there that's going to help us on the road to 29. We'll see you after the Portland game. Until next time, we out.
Peace.